my story of like who I am really started with my mom, and I will say my dad as well, of course. But the reason I'm saying my mom specifically is she was just I don't even know how to describe. I mean, just I'm not going to say the best mom in the world, but I will say the best mom that a Caden Lackey could ask for. It's just so unbelievably, like, unconditionally loving, just so centered and certain, exactly like who I needed in my life.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Teen Talks, and we are here with Caden Lackey, and we met Caden at GYLS, the Global Youth Leadership Summit, run by the Tony Robbins Foundation. Another one of our guests from there, because when we were there this summer, we met the most amazing people that we feel would contribute tons of value to you. So that's why we're bringing them on. And so Caden is here. I know that during GYLS, Caden and Rehan became very close friends as they got goofy together and did challenges and things with teenagers and had a blast. So you want to share a little bit about that, Rehan or Caden?
Yeah, I'll quickly jump in right there and just say like, met Caden for the first time. We like instantly just hit it off. Like we became really, really close, like brothers. And it was so nice to have someone like that, throughout the event. And one thing that I really noticed about Caden was just his like presence and his ability to just show up with the energy that he has. And it was really something that I was like in awe of. I was like, damn, this is really someone who, I feel very comfortable with. And at the same time, he like elevates the room whenever he's in it.
Mhm,
So
100%.
I'm so happy that we have you on, Caden. You know, I don't know if you want to share anything more about that, but I also do want to get into your story. But yeah, just go for it. Just
Oh, actually,
introduce
before
yourself
you
as
do
well.
that, let's go into
Hmm.
context here because we know that, I'm old and Rayhan is just turned 22 not that long ago. And you are how old?
I am 23, just about 24.
Okay, so we've got another youngin in the room. All right. So
Hmm.
good perspective for parents to have. So just want to start there.
Indeed.
So go ahead.
Well, just on the topic of GLS, I just want to mention for anybody listening who has or has not heard of it, my goodness, it is genuinely one of the favorite parts every year. I make sure to take off work. I set aside anything I have planned. It is just a week of absolute magic for both teams going to participate and volunteers of pretty much any age alike. So once again, just definitely I would recommend checking that out.
Yeah.
With you, Alice, I just want to share as well. As far as as Rehan was saying, it really was just like magic. I remember first meeting Rehan, and it was on the day before participants came, and it was I remember him coming up and like introducing himself, and I we didn't just immediately just like hit it off in that moment, but I just remember the like he just had just amazing energy and just so kind and positive and welcoming. And I was like, and I didn't even remember. I remember like I remember his name started with an R, and I was like, dang, I don't think I caught that. And then pretty soon we met up again, and we hung out like every single morning. We'd go on runs. I don't think I got to play soccer with you yet, but I mean, obviously, I didn't want to show off too much. But yeah, just an absolute gift of a man. And then as well, Susan, I didn't get to know you as well, but I also got to meet you last year, and it was so wonderful getting
Yeah.
to connect with you again. And I'm
Yeah, it
just
was.
it is a gift to
You said
finally
some
be on
nice,
the show.
nice words to help me understand my son better, which
Oh.
which was good because my son was struggling when I talked to you, and you had some ideas for him, and you kind of understood what he was going through, which as a parent made me feel like, okay, he's going to be all right. He's just going through a thing. So I appreciated that because it gave me a little more perspective as a parent. So thank
Mhm.
you.
Of course, I'm so very happy we got to talk about that, Susan. So, but that's all I have to say with you, Wallace. Is there any direction you guys would like to take this initially?
Yeah, I just want to, you know, you as a person, right, Kaden, you have this ability to show up in a certain way, quite frequently. And I'm sure like everyone else, like you do have your challenges and stuff like that. But I want to kind of get deep into where does it all come from? Like, what is your story? What has led you to becoming who you are today? I'm sure that there were ups and downs throughout your journey. I'm sure that there were certain instances that you might be able to pinpoint that really shifted the way you live your life. Can you kind of just take us through that, and take as long as you want to kind of just share whatever it is that you want to share about your journey, about your story, just that we can really start to understand who you are and how the Caden of today has come to be?
That is a beautiful question. Thank you. So honestly, I feel besides my story starting with being born, I think that my story of like who I am really started with my mom. And I will say my dad as well, of course. But the reason I'm saying my mom specifically is she was just I don't even know how to describe. I mean, I'm not going to say the best mom in the world, but I will say the best mom that a Caden Lackey could ask for. It's just so unbelievably like unconditionally loving, just so centered and certain. Of course, like as any human, like, has her flaws and this and that, but like just nothing that like I look back and just think like, oh, I wish that was different. Just exactly like who I needed in my life. And I just had the great grace of having her in my life until I was about 7 years old. And she had many health issues from even when she was in her late teens onward. And one of those she just get like chronic seizures that would get chronically worse and more
Mm.
frequent over time. And I mean, she'd had seizures all the time, and they'd range from not much at all to kind of intense, but she always pulled through them. And just when I remember this day, it was September 26th and this was in 2007. This was a little less than a month before I turned 7 years old. The school counselor came into my classroom. I think it was in like first grade, and she had come up to me and she said, "Hey, like I'm going to take you home." And I was so excited. I was like, "Oh my God, like I get to leave school halfway through the day. The counselor's driving me home. Like this is great." And then we get home and we turn
Mm.
the corner and there's an ambulance outside. And like I get out of the car and there's like my grandparents and my dad and they're all sitting on the back porch. And at the time you don't really like being a little kid, you don't quite process like what that means. But my mom had a seizure while everybody was gone or at work or school or whatnot, and nobody was there to basically like help her. And I don't know honestly if that would have even mattered because it was an intense seizure, but did end up taking her life and
Mm.
dramatically changing my own path. um
So sorry
and
to hear that. Wow.
and
Had no idea. So, wow.
it's not something I share. I do share it a lot, but I mean it's not something that I'm just spouting from the top of rooftops. I do appreciate that, Susan. And I do want to also add though that as genuinely sad as that is, and as much as I really do miss her because she was just such an amazing woman, I so much of my life now is the way it is because of who she was and because she passed away, that I really have nothing but just unbelievable gratitude
Mhm.
for everything that has happened. And so, with that in mind, I think that I just want to mention her because for the first like around 7 years of a child's life, I mean, like they're just getting like programmed and like just they're learning so much every day, and like a lot of who they become is getting wired in right then and there.
For sure.
And it was just such a gift that I not only get to like have like biologically share a lot of my DNA from my mom, but I mean she raised me for about the first 7 years of my life, so I get so many of my like beautiful like patterns, and every psychology comes from what she ingrained in me as well. So I mean, I honestly I can't complain too much because a lot of who I am today is because of her.
It just goes to show, parents do have a huge impact on a child's life, even from a very, very early age. And even if all the way through, I mean, all the way through, but you were blessed to have such an amazing amazing experience and teachings from your mom. And I'm sure that like you watched her, because we talk about this too, of being a role model for your children, because you're their most significant role model, and you
Mhm.
got to see this amazing woman. So I'm sure that's a big part of it, just watching the way she worked and the way she dealt with life. I'm sure that was huge.
So unbelievably huge.
Hmm.
And to your point, I also want to add, I got to observe and I got to feel the way she loved as well. Just like the
Hmm.
sense of like unconditional love. And it was just, I think that was out of everything that I got from her, I think that was the biggest, both like gift that continues to give to this day and
Wow.
onward. And I think at the time when she had passed, I think that was the biggest pain by far that followed me for a long time
Mhm.
afterwards. And with that in mind, I would love to share that. So a couple years after she passed, my dad ended up meeting somebody else, and then after that, remarrying, and we had moved from South Dakota to over to Minnesota. And I lived there for a couple, like 4 years during middle school. Then I jumped down to my dad and stepmom had family in Texas, so we moved down to Texas, and I lived there during my high school years. And during that time in my life, I I don't want to say like I was a different like my nature was not different than it is now. I feel like from even hearing stories of when I was a real little kid, I mean my nature has really stayed the same, and just kind of grown and expanded. But there was this long period of time from when my mom had passed away up until and of this significant emotional event that happened in 2020 I'll share with you guys, where during that chunk of time it just kind of felt like I mean, I was a kid, I was growing up, I was having all those experiences, and it was wonderful, and I wouldn't change any of it. But there was a piece of me, like psychologically, emotionally, that was just kind of locked up. It felt where it was like I had all this love that I'd get from my mom, and then when she died, that as a kid you don't understand. It's just all of a sudden you have this love, 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 boom, it's gone, and you don't really get it. And on my dad's side of things, I mean, I get unconditional love from him too, but it's different. It's a different type of unconditional love. And with the relationship father son, there can be a sense of like wanting to make him proud, and just the way he would communicate it as well. A beautiful man, and I wouldn't change any of it. But the way we would communicate it would make me feel like if I don't do good enough, I'm not going to get that love. And now there's nobody else. Like my mom is gone. I got to get it from him, like when you're a little kid growing up.
Mhm.
So I kind of got this pattern condition inside of me where it was like, if I don't get 100% on tests and I don't like win everything I do, and like if things don't go to plan every moment, then I have failed deeply, I'm not enough, and I will not be loved. And it was like it created like this sense of like needing to, like, perfectionism is a good way to put it. And it was like this constant sense of like it felt like life was like TV static, where like there were these moments where it would like tune into like the channel you wanted to watch. That's time with family and friends, or playing video games for me when I was a little kid. But like moments where there was so much joy and fun and love present, but there was like this background. I just remember so often growing up, there was this background feeling of like, this is so great and I love this. And then tomorrow I have to go to school, or tomorrow I have to, like, this is going to end. And I just go back into this sense of like darkness almost. Not like a sense of like despair, depression, but it was more just like this underlying buzz in the background of like, this life really is okay. It's not that great, and it's never going to like consistently get better.
Mm.
Mm.
And it just and that's just a I know that's something that a lot of people feel to varying degrees. And it breaks my heart honestly, because it's just such it doesn't need to be that way. But when you're in it, when you're in the static, it's so hard to believe that there's something more than that.
I think
um
that's what you're saying is, like you said, it's very common, especially in adolescence, because you don't know what's going on with your life. you don't know, you don't have enough experience and knowledge, and you do feel pressure. So many kids feel so much pressure to be
Yes.
perfect and to receive love, which is sad. But yeah, so I think you're resonating with a lot of the parents that are listening right now to go, oh gosh, it's not what my teen is feeling. So
I really, and I thank you for pointing it out, because Susan, I really hope I do. Like, for any parents that are listening, and if this resonates in any sense, if all I have to say on that front is just giving unconditional love, where it doesn't matter the mistakes that have been made. It doesn't test grades, jobs, whatever's happened. Just taking that and making it clear to, like, your child that it's okay. Like,
mhm.
all of the, like, they have nothing to make up. There's no debt to pay. The slate is wiped clean in every single moment, and that love will be present no matter what. And that just the impact that has is, there aren't words to describe how magical that is, just to have that from your parents. So I advocate so highly just to, step up and just love fearlessly and unconditionally.
So question for you now is do you feel like that you put that on yourself, or you really felt like your dad was setting the standard so high? You know, or did you just go, I have to do this because of the way he is? Or I mean, did he set the bar really high?
And that's the funny thing. I actually haven't thought too much about that, but he didn't. He
He
didn't
didn't.
set the bar super low, but it wasn't this super sky high bar either. I mean, it was just normal. And he wouldn't. I mean, like, there was no abuse of any kind. There was no harshness. There was nothing. I mean, I got grounded to my room a bunch for, like, silly stuff, but other than that, like, nothing crazy. I think it was more so this sense of, like, this the way he communicates love is different than the way I received and I communicate love. And
Mm,
it took me a long time to understand that there are different ways that people, like, different types of love languages.
yes.
And I ultimately, I think that I ended up setting my own bar impossibly high, because I felt like, I'd do something and I'm like, oh, this is good. But then he wouldn't communicate to me the way I thought would be loving. So I'm like, oh, I just didn't do good enough. Let me set it higher and higher and higher. And it just, like, it became so impossibly high, to a point where I can't, it's unreachable.
Mm,
Hmm.
wow.
So yeah.
So then what
But
Makes
happened?
sense.
I mean,
good.
you go through life like that. That's hard.
It very much is, it is very much a very heavy burden to carry.
Yes.
And I know it's not a rare burden. I know even many parents listening to this right now, care, like, setting standards to perfection,
Hmm.
is just such a common, I'm going to call it, in this sense, I'll call it a disease, in the sense of, like, dis-ease. You're
Hmm.
putting yourself at dis-ease for no reason. Something I love that Tony Robbins talks about is, he has, like, different levels of standards. He talks about, you start with poor, and when you poor is like, you just don't show up at all. You give no effort at all. You're basically walking backwards in the effort you're putting. And when you put in, like, poor effort in your standards, poor, you get, no results. Like, the results are in the dumpster. There's nothing. Then the next step, huge step up, is good. And I mean, like, a lot of people are in that place of good. I'm a good man, I'm a good woman, I do a good job. And that's wonderful, because that's leagues ahead of poor. You're genuinely putting an effort, you're genuinely moving forward and trying.
Hmm.
But the issue with good is that the results don't reflect it. Good action does not mean good results. Good action leads to poor results. It's better than absolutely nothing, but I mean, if you're doing a good job, I really hope that you want, something more than just poor results for yourself and your family and kids and all that. The next one, huge step up to excellence. And with excellence, like, that's where you're pretty much playing full out. You're pretty much doing your best, like, it's amazing. And excellence is great in the sense of like you're really pushing yourself and you feel that, but then the results are just good. It's a huge step up from poor results, but I mean, like if you're really like giving your best and giving your all, I mean, it just kind of it's just not fair that you're just getting good results. And then there actually are there's one more and then a bonus I want to share that kind of wraps this all up. And so the final one is what he calls outstanding. And that's just, it's a huge jump from poor to good, huge jump from good to excellent. And then just a tiny, tiny little shift to go from excellent to outstanding. And a way I like to look at this is like, think of an Olympian. Think of, so like, I mean, people all over the world train years and years and years to go to the Olympics.
Mhm.
And you have to be one of the best people in the world at your event to even go to the Olympics, one of the best out of billions of people. And then you compete with the best around the world. And then at the end, there are three medals:
Yeah.
gold, silver, bronze. And then go and think, if you're the third best in the world, you get a bronze medal. The third best or the second best is silver. Who like really remembers second, third? And then how about fourth? The fourth best
Yeah.
human in the world at this, and you don't even get anything
Hmm.
in terms of like no like accolades, no rewards or anything in that sense. I mean, of course, there's so much beauty that comes with you know, doing that. So I'm
Journey.
not
Yeah.
trashing any of it, but I'm all I'm saying is in terms of you know, being first, second, third, fourth, there's no medal, there's nothing given to fourth place. But number one, that's they were just a little bit better, just a tiny smidge better than second place, and that made all the difference. And a lot of life is that way. When you're
Hmm.
just when you just give a little bit more effort, which we all have inside. In this case with children, just give a little bit more effort to your kids, just a little bit more energy, just a little bit more time, just a little bit more love, because it's inside of you. It makes a world of difference in the way it makes your like helps builds your relationship with your child, the way that they feel that. And I'm not obviously a parent, but I'm speaking in the sense of what I experienced with my mom, with my dad, and with other like parental figures I've had in my life.
Hmm.
Just that tiny little bit of effort goes an unbelievable way. And then last I want to share is there is one more standard that seems like it would be even above outstanding. And the funny part is it is the lowest standard a human being can have. And that standard is perfection. It's setting the bar so high that nobody could possibly reach it, whether you do that for yourself or other people. And when you set the bar like that to an impossible level, you can't win, you'll end up giving up over the span of time because you'll try again and again and again, and then you just basically convince like you form the belief that, you know what, I've literally given my all and I get nothing from this. And then you just turn out and then you flip your what you're shooting for down to good or poor, and then you believe that's just the way life has to be. And that's honest, I say all this just to say that's what I did to myself. I set
Yeah.
the bar so high that I made it impossible to win. Then I just said, you know, screw this, and I set the bar down to good,
Mhm.
and I got poor results. And I lived like that for a very, very long time
Until,
Yeah.
and that's
until
a hard way to live.
that is a it's a devastating place to
And
live.
it's not anybody else that's doing it to you. It's yourself. That's the thing. It's
Just me.
yourself. And so if you were, so like you're saying, if parents listening to this, and parents do this, they want to be, there's like the super mom syndrome, right? And all that,
Mhm.
so us as adults do the same exact thing, but it's harder on a kid because they're really growing. And you as a parent are their safety net, are their home, are their comfort. What would you as a parent do differently than your dad did or anything? I mean, you said he was there, but
Yes.
but you're saying just give a little more love, just give a little more. What would you say for the parent to do when their child is constantly striving for this perfection?
what I would say now, there's, I'm sure, almost an unlimited amount of advice,
I'm sure. Yeah.
or things that would be applicable here. But what I feel that would have helped me a great deal is if my dad met me where I was at, where and I see that as two things. I see that
Mhm.
as a, just taking a step into my world and understanding, for appreciating and understanding the world that I was living in. That, why am I getting the results I am, good or bad? Why is he, getting, doing so well on tests? That's great. Well, how is he feeling about it? I know, though, that was a conversation I didn't have very often with him, and just checking in all places, both results and internally, how they're doing. And then from that place, you can really tailor how you show up. You can tailor, maybe I'm too present, like in their life, in the sense of like, maybe I'm a bit too overbearing and I got to, let them breathe a little bit. Maybe I'm not present enough and I need to lean in a little bit. That piece, there's, so many different ways to change your approach. I think it's just the big step would just be really having that conversation with your child, and just letting go. It doesn't matter where they're at, even if it's in a terrible place. Just accepting and appreciating this is how it is right now, and it doesn't need to stay that way.
Mhm.
And then learning, how can I, be present and just show up for them the way they need me to.
Excellent. I think that was
Yeah.
really, really a good message.
Oh, for sure.
Okay, so then how did you get out of this? I mean, look at you now. So what happened?
That is the story I love to tell. So in there, and I just want to share that through that time, like, there was that background buzz of, like, life kind of, it's okay, it kind of sucks, and it's just going to stay this way. I have these little peaks, with friends and family, and going to amusement parks, and all that, where it's just like, oh, this is great, and then just kind of fills back down. And I have this series actually of experiences in 2020, where pretty much I had, in my just after my freshman year of high school, I met a girl and we started dating. She was my first, like, real girlfriend. And she lived in Minnesota. And I lived in Texas at the time. So we did a long distance 3 years. And the plan was, I'm going to move to Minnesota because, like, that I wanted to go back. I didn't want to move to Texas in the first place.
So
And we're
wait,
gonna,
you're a freshman in high school. So you're how old? What, 14?
I think I was like 15, something like that. Yeah.
Okay. That's tough. 15 and having a long distance romance for your first one. Wow.
Oh
And
yeah.
making these plans. Okay, interesting.
I was definitely a planner. And yeah, and then it goes to plan. I graduate, I move up to Minnesota pretty soon after. I live with her and her mom, and her little brother and whatnot for a little bit, and I did not like that much. So then we move out into our own apartment, my first apartment. And over the span of about, I don't know, 7 or 8 months, I had to learn very quickly that this person and I are not a great match.
Mm,
And I really don't mean to speak down on her in any way. I'm just, who she was is beautiful, and is beautiful. Just not her and I just don't mesh very well in person, we found out. And that was a really hard thing for
oh,
me to
I'm
learn.
sure.
She was basically like, the reason I share this actually is, and especially with my mom, is I really feel like during that time, like after she passed, and I searched for that unconditional love in the same way that I had it from her and my dad, and it wasn't present because he's my dad, not my mom. And then I just felt like I couldn't get it anywhere for a long time. And then when I met my then girlfriend, I felt it, or
Mm,
what I thought was that unconditional love. It wasn't, but it felt like it, and I became so incredibly attached to that, because it was like, oh my god, I finally have this back. I didn't think I'd ever get it. How I can never let this go. And it took me a lot of time and a lot of pain in order to finally, um, realize that, what, I don't know if this is unconditional love or not at the time, but this is so painful that I would rather be outside of this relationship than in it. So we ended up ending the relationship, and then a couple days passed, and then the relationship was not ended. It went on for a couple more days, and then it ended again. And I was like, okay, I can clearly not stay around here. Something like some environment needs to change because this cannot continue. And my friend at the time was had just gone through something very, very traumatic that I won't get into now, but just something where she was just going to take a road trip for a week to down to Utah just to kind of clear her mind and whatnot. She invited me. I said, I'm sorry, I have a girlfriend, I have a job, I can't go. And then a week later, I did not have a girlfriend, and I very immediately made plans. I was moving from Minnesota to South Dakota, so I was about to not have a job anymore. So I was like, I will go. So we took this road trip down to Utah. We were going to go to some national parks like Zion. We never went to Zion. We instead went to Las Vegas. And while we were there on the Vegas Strip, we were sitting there in Bubba Gump Shrimp, eating some calamari. And I turned to her and I said, wouldn't it be funny if we got married? And she's like, she just kind of laughs, like, yeah. And I was like, no, like, we're in Vegas, like we really could get married. So I do a little research, and we go to the marriage license or the whatever office in downtown Vegas, get our marriage license, and then we go to a little what do you call it, a little chapel just across the street from Pawn Stars, and we get it all signed. We have a little ceremony, and just like that, at 19 years old, about 6 days after breaking up with my 4-year girlfriend, I was legally married to somebody else.
Oh,
And
wow.
that was the beginning of one heck
Every
of a summer.
parent's right now is going, oh my God.
Susan, I think we have the title and the thumbnail for this
Yeah.
episode. Right.
So, and yes, and I, just from a parent's perspective, I want to highlight so much, because like from the perspective of a child making some wild decisions that look incredibly concerning on the outside, because they were incredibly concerning decisions. um I did not get uh I don't I did not get the support like my mom, support my mom would have given me, of like just genuine, like, all right, something's not right here for this decision to be made right now. Let me check it, not judge, but let me check in and like just be present, supportive, figure this out. I did not get that from my parents, and I don't say that if they're listening. I really don't say that to judge. I'm not saying that out of regret or despite or anything. I'm just saying, for all the parents listening, I did not get like parently like attention and nurturing from in that situation when I really needed it most.
Mhm.
And that led to some future poor decisions I will share, where it could have just been nipped right there. Um,
Yeah.
so that in a time like that, if you have a child making some really curious, interesting decisions, I
I
would
like the language you're using.
instead of judging them, instead of saying this is wrong, instead of trying to fight with them or trying to impose your will on them, that's that rarely works, and it never works long term, never.
Hmm.
I would highly suggest just what I was saying about understanding and appreciating the world, because every single action, there's a source, there's a reason that they're feeling a way, that they're acting a certain way, and there's no way you're ever going to be able to influence them if you don't set yourself aside, set judgment aside, and just listen and just be present with them. If there's nothing else I could advocate for parents right now, just listening and being present with your children will literally go so unbelievably far. It's insane.
Yeah.
Um,
Caden, I do want to jump in really. I'm so excited to hear like everything else that you have to share, because I feel like this is just the beginning. I just have a quick question though. Did you actively seek out that parental, like, I guess, love or guidance that you, looking back on, you feel like you needed? Or was it something that you were kind of wishing and hoping would be there regardless? Like, were you going, like, were you constantly in communication with, your dad and your stepmom, I guess? Or was it more of a thing of like you weren't really in touch with them, so you were just kind of free to make whatever decisions you wanted, and that's why you didn't have that guidance? Like, can you just kind of explain that for us, please?
Yes. So just a little context. So to directly answer your question, I was not in consistent contact with them. It's not, we weren't estranged or anything. And I did tell them about the marriage like right away and whatnot, which I'll get to in a moment. But the reason that I wasn't in consistent contact with them, and certainly not in a sense where they really influenced my decisions at all, because during the time, like during middle school and high school, it was just like I had mentioned, like getting grounded a lot. I got grounded a lot for just really like I probably spent more time during middle school and high school actually being grounded to my room and stuff like that than I spent not. And it
Mm.
was just for stuff that I felt was so nonsensical. Like pretty like I never snuck out, I never drank, never did drugs, never went to parties. I no interest. All I did was hang out with some friends and not doing great. Like we go over and play board games or stuff like that, or I play video games. That was the main stuff. And I'd just be grounded for like I stayed up too late talking on video games when I was being quiet or stuff.
Uh,
And I'm not saying like there shouldn't be repercussions, for different actions and decisions. But what I am saying is that when your one and only move to when your child's not doing what you want them to do is I'm not going to like ask you questions. I'm not going to explain my reasoning. I'm just going to punish you over and over and over again until it works. It doesn't develop it doesn't develop any like sense of closeness or influence with your child.
mhm.
It just kind of makes them be like, I can't wait to get the heck out of here, and so I don't
Yeah.
have to listen to you anymore. And that's what happened. As
Yeah.
soon as I graduated, I moved out, and then I just didn't listen to any other um, influence that my parents had to say for a long time. So when I got married, I mean, I called them and told them, because I called and told like everybody, for some reason, because I thought it was hilarious, and they
You
just
did it as a joke.
I,
That's a 19-year-old brain. You did it as a joke.
oh,
Did
what
you
Interesting.
love
crazy
your
times
did
to
you
deal with.
love your wife?
I we okay. Um, I am very present to, I did not have a great understanding of what it meant to like really love somebody
Mm,
at that point in time. I would say I very much care. I very much did care and care about her. Um, but I wasn't great at always acting in that
mm.
way, which I
Mhm.
will definitely shows in some of my next decisions on my decline in 2020.
All right, go for
Uh,
it.
so, and just last touch with the parents. So when I told them, I just remember, I don't exactly remember how my dad reacted. It wasn't like in a deep sense of concern, I don't believe. I remember my stepmom had just kind of thought it was actually a bit comical, not like laughing at me, but just like oh my gosh, like I can't, like you got married. Um, which is looking back, which is fine. It's funny. But at the time, it was like that was a moment. That was a moment in time where real, like genuine love and concern and understanding could have showed up and really
Mm.
helped me get recentered onto who I am, because that was not who I was to be making those types of wild decisions. Um, but it just wasn't present with them, so I continued to make some unique choices. Um, so after that, I moved from Minnesota over to South Dakota, back in with my grandparents, and they're my mom's parents. And let's see here, pretty much I was kind of like on again, off again with my then wife, in terms of like being like romantically. And then finally, it was I went down to Texas to spend some time with my aunt,
Wait,
and
wait, wait, wait. Just one thing. So you moved in
yes.
with your grandparents. Where was your wife?
She was living with her parents.
So you guys were
And
married but living with. Okay. Hmm,
yeah,
that's
yes.
interesting. All right.
Well, it was kind of like It was a legal
They hadn't
marriage.
thought any of it through.
No.
No.
We got married 2 hours after we decided to get married. My proposal to her was I'll pay for the divorce.
Was
Um,
that what?
that that I will pay for the divorce.
Oh.
It was, yeah,
Oh my God.
19-year-old brain really working there.